Hello, and welcome to the Shuffle Play On project. My name is Danielle Langua. I'm fascinated by our everyday relationship with art and media, but mostly I want people to give me music recommendations. I want it on my own selfish terms, though. You see, when I listen to music, I tend to hit shuffle and listen to anything and everything I have, rather than specific playlists or albums. So the guests here will do the same, sharing and discussing the first 7 songs that come up on Shuffle Play. Here's a caveat. I'm not going to play the songs for everyone to hear because I don't want the copyright police coming after me. However, I will put song information in the show notes, so feel free to check that out. Let's get into it. Today's guest is Gabriel. Gabriel, can you please introduce yourself and how we know each other?
Hello everyone, my name is Gabriel. I'm a software engineering researcher. I'm originally from Brazil and currently studying in Canada. And so I met Danielle, I met you last year on a conference in Bremen, Germany. It's a conference about entertainment computing. And so as we are both researchers, we were there.
Yeah, it was really fun to meet you. That was a great conference. It was fun to sit in that university surrounded by robotics and all that stuff and eat meals and talk to each other about research. That was really cool.
Yeah.
So can you tell me how you listen to music on a day-to-day basis? Like when, where, what platforms, preferred artists, genres, etc.?
So I usually listen to music while I'm working. It helps me focus. I know a lot of people do that. It's been a long time I use Spotify. Since I think I created my Spotify account in 2014. So I've been sticking with them for a long time. And I have my own playlists. I know that Spotify also has their own playlist that they suggest to you, but I tend to stick to my own playlists and I tend to organize them by kind of mood. So let's say I want to focus, and so I have playlists that have calm music that help me focus, but sometimes you also need some energy, and then I have some playlists with more upbeat songs that help me keep alert as well.
Yeah, I think that's a common kind of phenomenon. I definitely have playlists like that too, where there's some that are more for cleaning the house and others that are more for exercise, things like that.
Oh yeah, for cleaning, I don't listen to music, but I listen to podcasts while cleaning.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to, I feel that I'm using my time in a more useful way. So I'm absorbing some knowledge and also cleaning the house.
Yeah, same. So how do you usually find new music to listen to?
Well, I think it's usually a very random process for me, because sometimes it comes from friends. So friends tell me that they are listening to something, and then I go there and check. But in other situations, it's like YouTube suggested me an artist, and then I later search for it on Spotify as well. Or on Spotify, sometimes when you are in an artist page, it shows you other related artists that people who like that artist tend to like as well this other artist. And so this is how I discover new people, new artists.
Yeah, awesome. It's definitely the same for me, where it's kind of all over the place. Sometimes it's via social media, sometimes it's from people who I talk to, etc. So here's another question for you. Is there a particular music video that has stuck with you?
So I was thinking about that actually some weeks ago, and then by coincidence, when I looked at the list of questions for this podcast, it was one of the questions. And I remember that maybe one of the first music videos that I remember watching was the music video for Elevation of U2. And it's quite a chaotic video because they tried to mix. I think back then they had some kind of deal with the producers of the Tomb Raider movie with Angelina Jolie.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So they kind of mixed the movie and the song, and they're completely unrelated. Like if you look at the lyrics, it has nothing to do with the movie and vice versa. But they kind of put the members of U2 inside of some scenes of the movie. And so it's kind of funny. But I remember back then And it was even back in a time where I didn't have internet at home, so I went to my friend's house to watch it. and it was very low resolution, but I was so impressed with all the effects and kind of the adventure vibe of the music video, because it's kind of like the members of U2 are trying to save the world with Lara Croft.
That's awesome.
And I still think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't remember that one myself. For me, one of the music videos that always like really jumps out in my mind, it's Shania Twain, or Shania Twain. Ooh. And she had this song called That Don't Impress Me Much. And the video for it is so iconic. And she's from Canada, where you're currently living. I don't know where. But I just remember like how she looked in that video. Because it's like her whole outfit is head to toe leopard print. She's redheaded. And then she has this bright red lipstick on, and she has suitcases, and they're also in the exact same leopard print as her outfit. And it was such an iconic like image to me for so long. I love that music video. Do I remember what actually happens in the video? No, but I know the song and I know the outfit.
To be honest, I don't think I watched this entire music video, but I remember seeing parts of it. And also Shania Twain is well known for the flashy outfits and stuff like that.
Oh, yes. Very revealing. She's very attractive, so I can't say that I am mad about that.
Yeah, she definitely looks cool in the videos.
So here's another question. Is there anyone, like a band or a musician, that is currently like no longer playing that you would like to see live? Like if you could go back in time, who would you want to see live?
So I think this would be a long list.
I know, same for me.
But actually, there is one band that I'm actually not sure if they're still active. I think they are active, but not really doing lots of shows anymore, which is ACDC. I really like to watch them.
Yeah,
but I think some of the band members, they had like health issues because some of them are quite old. And also they had other schedule problems and personal problems that don't allow them to follow up with the band. And I think one of the members passed away as well recently.
Yeah. Kind of along those same lines. One of mine would definitely be like Journey, but the Journey with Steve Perry. Oof, yeah. So good. Also, like it would be such a long list, It's hard to pick just one.
Yeah, I was about to add one more
for sure
to the list, which would be Queen. I just think they're
on my list too. On my list too, absolutely.
And you know that some years ago there was the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, and I went with my friends to the movie theater to watch it, and it was just a great experience. I mean, I didn't have high expectations, but the songs are just so catchy. You just feel so good singing, and well, the movie, it's a bit like, it's not intended to be a documental kind of thing, so they kind of change some parts to make it more interesting for the movie, but still it's just great to watch it and to feel the songs with the artists.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually haven't seen that movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I should probably watch it. It's like on the list, but I just haven't actually watched it.
It was heavily criticized as well by not being truthful to some historical facts about the band, but I think it has a nice vibe. To me, it was a movie that made me feel good and helped me enjoy and know more about Queen and their songs. So I would recommend it. But I mean, for the hardcore fans who really want to see the real facts and the real accuracy, then maybe it's not that great.
Yeah. So it's more like Queen mythology rather than the actual events.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, I don't remember which of the band members said that, but I think one of them said that the idea was more like creating a celebration of Freddie Mercury and a celebration of the band's work than really creating a documentary. Because there's actually, people already made documentaries about Queen, so they wanted to make something else, something new.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's hard if you're creating a unified narrative movie. It would be hard to actually represent real life because there's so much going on in a person's everyday life, and things usually don't happen in the same like bombastic way that they would in a movie. So that seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, and also I think even in a documentary, this is a problem. That is the problem of which point of view are you following? Because when you are telling the story, for example, of Freddie Mercury, who is a person who already passed away, you cannot ask him what he thinks or how the experience was for him. So I have to tell the story from the point of view of other people. So the other band members, the friends, the family, you have to ask them how they felt about that. But that might be different from what Freddie Mercury actually felt about that. So
yeah, exactly.
It's there are many conflicting points of view sometimes about the same fact.
Yeah, I often think about that with coming from my like psychology roots. I think about like Kitty Genovese, and she's very I'm sure I'm mispronouncing her surname. I'm so sorry to, I don't know, humans for mispronouncing that. But she was really famous in the world of psychology because of how she died. And it's a very tragic, like horrible story where it seemed like people really took advantage of her death. But news stories about her death kind of led to a whole huge sector of research and led to what we now know as the bystander effect. And so it's a really interesting thing. And I often think about, and when I was teaching students about her, one of the things I would always try to remind them was like, this is just the end of her life. She was a whole human person who had life experiences and everything else, but we can never ask her how she felt in those moments. We have to extrapolate based on other people and other things. And it's just very limited in a way that she's definitely on my list of people that I would just love to talk to her, have a conversation with her about, of course, her death, because it is historically relevant, but it's also, I would love to know more about who she was in life, because she was actually, from all accounts, really interesting. The most famous photograph of her appears to actually be a mugshot, as far as I can tell. And she was potentially a lesbian living in New York in like the 1960s, like just a super fascinating person. I would love to have known more about her, but we're so limited in the knowledge we have of her. I know that's a weird, like maybe sad tangent, but it's something I think about when I think about this idea of like legacy and not being able to talk to people who you would love to talk to.
Yeah, and especially I think as researchers, we are always like studying things that we didn't start them. It was started by someone in the past.
Yes.
And I always think like actually in the opposite way. I think how it would be if we could bring a researcher from the past for them to see the progress that we did on a certain area nowadays. Because sometimes, and there are many examples of this in computer science as well, even though computer science is a much younger area of knowledge than psychology, for example. But
not that much older, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
No, it's psychology is a fairly young science. I mean, Freud was alive at like the turn of the 1900s. And he's often considered to be the father of modern psychology. But somebody like Hedy Lamarr, I would love to bring her back and say, like, look at, this is what we've done with computer science. You know, she would be such a fascinating person.
I was about to mention Ada Lovelace, which is the first computer programmer. But back when, she wrote some code, quote unquote code for the analytical machine, it was very different. It was a mechanical computer. It was very different from what we have nowadays. And so, but the interesting thing is that back when she was writing about that kind of machine, she already predicted that maybe one day we could have something different. They still didn't have the words to describe that, but they predicted that maybe one day machines would be created that could be used for all kinds of purposes, to do all kinds of calculations. And it actually happened like 100 years after that, but it happened.
Yeah, it's amazing. It would be so cool to talk to so many of those people. So I guess we can move on here. Now I'm asking Gabriel to share, so I should probably share as well. So I'm going to hit shuffle play on my own music library and see what comes up. All right. So I also use Spotify, so I'm going to click. Okay. The song that came up is Alien Superstar by Beyonce. Now, I just got back fairly recently, like last week, I think, from seeing her live and performing the Renaissance tour. And of course, Alien Superstar is on the Renaissance album. So I got to see her perform it live. And so naturally, I've been listening to this album almost nonstop after seeing her perform it. And oh my God, it's so good. It's a house album. And of course, it's Beyonce, so it's always really solid in terms of production and everything else. But it's so good. And I'm still on such like a high emotionally from that.
Nice. Yeah, and I actually I didn't watch lots of stuff live, lots of live artists, but I feel like that this is the kind of experience that you cannot get at home, like simply listening to your songs on Spotify. The experience of really seeing and being impacted in real time by what the artist is doing, that sticks with you a long time after the performance as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like I got to see Lady Gaga last year as well. And the thing that has astonished me, I was in show choir for a few years in high school. So I was in choir period, but we did some kind of like show choir-y things, which means like dancing plus singing. And that is so hard to do. Like it is really hard to sing and dance at the same time. And having seen both Gaga and Beyonce perform, where they're singing live and they are definitely dancing, it is so impressive. The stuff that they do is legitimately so unbelievably impressive. Beyonce's vocals are incredible. Like I was shocked. I expect them to be human in the sense that I expect them to maybe make mistakes and things like that. And I'm sure there are small mistakes here and there. But as a person who was in that giant stadium, I never noticed it. I was just like, damn, she sounds so good.
Yeah, I'm sure they practice a lot as well.
Oh, yeah.
Before the tour.
Oh, for sure. I can't imagine what those practices have to be like. I'm sure it's months in advance.
Yeah, and I'm always impressed too by people who can do acting and singing and dancing all in the same thing. Like the actors that work in musicals. That must be a lot of work. And not just for recording one specific movie, but it's their life's work. They have to be practicing for years and years to get to a level where they can do these things well.
Mm-hmm. Unlike musical theater, like Broadway and stuff like that, the West End, etc. I have been lucky enough to see, like, I saw Wicked in California when I was quite young, really. Then I was also able to see Phantom of the Opera when it was touring around the US. And my God, those people are so skilled. They are so skilled.
Yes, and I had the same impression recently watching, I think it was actually, it might be maybe a bit funny for people who had their education in North America. But for example, for me, I'm 26 now. I'm just now discovering Shakespeare. Because in Brazil, we actually learn about our local literature. And of course, we hear about Shakespeare. Like I remember my literature teacher saying, this is Shakespeare, but then that's it. We didn't get into like what he wrote and the plays and stuff. And so just now, more recently, I'm starting to search for material and actually watching some of the performances on YouTube.
Oh, they're so good.
Yes.
So far I watched
King Lear and Midsummer Night's Dream. And Midsummer Night's Dream, it has a part, because, if you are familiar with the play, it's like in a forest and there are fairies and stuff like that. And so there are some parts that are musical and there is dance as well. And the specific performance that I watched, I think it was recorded in the US. I don't remember which university, but it was like people did that in a university environment. And but it was quite a nice production. They had all the outfits, and you could see it was very well made. And the parts with dancing and singing, they were not very long parts. And actually, if you read the play, Shakespeare did not write any like music or instructions or like for dance. He just puts like between parentheses dance.
And so somebody else who specialized in it did it. And it's so great because there's so many different iterations of it. I love Shakespeare's work. I think that he's often, at least in the US, there's this perception that it's almost stuffy or that it's like too old. But if you actually listen to it or see it performed or even read it, like Shakespeare's stuff is very funny. And there's a lot of things in it that are really still applicable today. I mean, there's a reason why the guy's so famous. So I definitely
Yeah.
understand that that's definitely a huge deal. But I'm sure that in Brazil I know actually that there's a whole legacy of fantastic art and music there as well. So I definitely don't. I'm not shocked by the fact that that may not have been the focus of your instructors because like there's so much cool stuff in Portuguese too.
Yes. Yes, that's true. I didn't stop to think about that, but that's true. And not just on literature. Well,
Hmm.
I think other countries are like this. This is not exclusive of Brazil, but I
Hmm.
feel that I studied a lot of like history, geography, literature, all focused on Brazil, which is
Hmm.
great because it's good to know your own country.
Yeah.
Even though I feel that like from a young age, I studied English and,
Hmm.
and so I became interested as well by artists and art that is not Brazilian. But I think I got a bit of the two worlds, but maybe some things I missed like Shakespeare, and just now I'm getting to learn more about it. And
Yeah.
also now, so as I mentioned in the beginning, I'm living in Canada. I'm in Montreal, which is in
Hmm.
Quebec, so it's the French-speaking region of Canada. And now I'm
Hmm.
learning French as well, so that opens a whole new
Oh
horizon
yeah.
of literature and music and stuff that I can
Oh
access. And
yes.
I'm spending now a lot of time with the French related music and literature.
Oh yeah, for sure. I took French when I was in high school, and actually a little bit before that too. It's a whole long thing, but so I definitely there's some amazing stuff in French. Like I remember we read Le Petit Prince, which is The Little Prince,
Oh
in
yes,
French, and I have also since like seen adaptations made in English and read it in English as well. But I just there's something magical about the original French.
this is something actually that I didn't do yet because this book is very famous,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I read it when I was a kid. I read it in Portuguese, and I never read it again like in other languages. After I learned English, I didn't read it in English. But now that I'm trying to learn French, maybe that's a cool thing to try.
Oh, I definitely recommend it. But anyway, that's a lot of different art types that we've been talking about that are go
Yes.
beyond the scope of music. But that's I think that's the power of music is that it's so involved with all of our other forms of literature and art consumption.
And movies and video games, everything
Hmm.
has music.
Everything has music, and it's better for it, you know.
Yeah.
All right. So at this point, we're going to get into Gabriel's playlist. So go ahead and hit shuffle play and let us know what comes up first.
Okay. So the first song is called Blast Off by David Guetta.
Ah, okay. I know David Guetta, but I don't know this song.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm now surprised because I used to listen to David Guetta many years ago, and now it's been a long time I don't listen uh, any songs from him. And so I don't even remember this song. So this is actually it shows a lot about how I use Spotify because sometimes I like one song to listen later and then
Hmm.
I don't ever listen to it. Or sometimes what I used to do a lot in the past was I like an entire album, and sometimes there are songs in the album which I don't even like or I don't even get to listen. And so I think this is one of them. So
Yeah, it says it was released in 2015, and the genres listed are electronica and hip hop rap, which sounds about right for David Guetta. So,
yeah, I wouldn't say rap, but well, sometimes when we talk about music genres, it's a bit subjective.
oh yeah, for sure.
Definitely an electronic song, very upbeat. And in the beginning, there is a sample of some electric guitar, which I think it's originally from I forgot the name of the band, but it's a famous rock
Hmm.
riff, and apparently he samples that for the song.
So on Google, if you scroll down a little bit, you know how there will be like the people often ask or whatever section.
Yeah.
The very first question is who is the guitarist in the song Blast Off? It says additional uncredited guitar performed by Michael Nadio. So I'm not sure what is.
Okay.
I'm
So
not sure
maybe
exactly
this
what that means.
is an original guitar riff, but I have the impression it sounds a bit like Van Halen, you know, the rock band, but I might be mistaken.
Let's see here. Wikipedia, the ever reliable Wikipedia. Oh, you're right about Van Halen. So it says the composition is largely based upon the original instrumentation of the song "Ain't Talking About Love"
Oh,
by Van
yes.
Halen, which yeah, okay, I know what you mean by that guitar riff now. Yeah.
Yeah, they use it in the very beginning of the song, and then I see in the chorus they repeat it. And I had this impression I heard this before in some Van Halen song, but then I didn't remember the name.
Yeah, that's your ear is spot on though to be able to pick out the Van Halen riff. That's very impressive.
So the next one is it's kind of a classic. It's a Fortunate Son by Creedence
Oh,
Clearwater Revival.
what a great song.
Yes, I love Creedence.
Oh, me
It's
too.
I think it's a thing that started a bit with my dad. My dad likes classic rock a lot,
Mm.
and so this is how I started listening to this kind of songs. And well, and this one is definitely very famous, and there's even a meme with that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think there's several actually with various different like clearance Clearwater revival. Ooh, that's hard for me to say.
Yeah,
Um,
you can say CCR as well.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I think one of my favorite songs that I always think of when I think of them is oh, what's it called? I think it's it Bad Moon Rising.
Yeah,
I just searched Fortunate Sons. I should have just searched CCR. Um, but yeah, it came out in 1969. Man, it's amazing how stuff that is almost the same age as my parents is still so relevant to us today.
yeah, yeah. If you stop to think, much of like pop and rock and roll was influenced by the kind of thing that was composed and played back in the 60s and 70s.
And there's I got on a crazy kick a couple of years ago where I wanted to know what was the oldest song. Like what was the oldest song that we have? And I found there are a few songs, there's two that seem to come up repeatedly. One is Selkios Epitaph, and the other one is and that one I believe is a complete song. And then there's some that are even older, but we don't have the full songs for them. And I think they're called the hurrian hymns or something like this. And I was listening to modern arrangements of these because some people have like tried to record it and say like this is what it could have sounded like. And it is eerie how familiar they feel. It's just like this just feels like regular music.
Yes, I think I heard some of this on YouTube, but
Mm-hmm.
also I know that the interpretation of the songs is also subjective because
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't know much about music theory, but I think in some cases they have the reference for the notes, but they don't have the rhythm, or vice versa. They don't have some information about how do you actually play the song, and also we don't know sometimes which instruments were used to play them.
Mm-hmm.
So we can only try to kind of reconstruct parts of it. But this is a very interesting work because it's kind of we're having an insight on how people did things like 3,000 years ago.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's so cool to even have a vague idea of what that stuff could have sounded like. Even if it's filtered through a modern lens, I still feel like it's cool.
Yes. Okay, so can I move on?
For sure.
Let's do it. So the next song is called Cry, Cry, Cry by a Brazilian band called Matanza. And actually,
Okay.
this song is not Matanzas, it's actually a song by Johnny Cash, but they re-recorded
Oh.
it. So Matanza is, how can I explain? I wouldn't say they're a metal band. They're more like country rock, country core
Mm.
Brazilian band. And so they have their own songs, but they also made an entire album just with re-recordings from Johnny Cash.
Oh, that'd
And the
be
name
really
of the
cool.
album is To Hell with Johnny Cash.
Oh, I do love Johnny Cash. I know exactly what this song is. I'll have to give this one a listen. I always love like listening to things from different cultures or whatever, because so often it's just fun to like, there's this song and I forget what it's called, but it was created in like the 70s, 60s or 70s by a group of Italians, and it's like what American English music sounds like.
Oh, I've seen
You
this.
know what I'm
Yes,
talking about?
I totally forgot the name, even though I think the name is also like complete gibberish.
Oh
But yeah,
yeah.
I know.
The whole thing is gibberish. None of it is real. But like even as a person who was born and raised in the United States, like I listen to it and I just go like, it feels like it's a conversation you can't quite hear in another room. That's what it feels like. It's just like it sounds like I
Exactly.
should, it sounds like I know what this is, but I don't understand any of it.
And I think this tells a lot about how languages work. You
Hmm.
see, if we get just like a couple of, not a couple, but maybe a dozen sounds, you can
Oh yeah.
make it, you can produce a stream of sounds that sounds like a conversation in a certain language.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's so cool. I'll have to give that one give that one a listen because I love anything related to Johnny Cash.
Yes, and but I would say this sounds quite differently from Johnny Cash because at least the songs that I've listened by Johnny Cash, they are more like just his voice and guitar and
Yeah.
maybe a bit of drums.
Hmm.
And then here you have, in the case of Matanza, you have heavy guitars and heavy drums.
It's just a different style. That's kind of cool though. I like when people take different music or a song and then put it into like a different genre. Like there's some really great, there's one, I forget who did it, but there was the song Toxic by Britney Spears, also an
Yes.
iconic music video. There was I don't know if they necessarily counted as a metal band, but it was a band where they slowed it down and they performed it and it was like way slowed down and a little bit more hard rock, and it sounds so like creepy and cool. Oh, I love it. It's so great. And Bad Romance, there was an I think that was Hailstrom who did that one, but like it's so good.
Yeah, and recently I was listening to, the song Wicked Game.
Yes.
So the Tenacious D made a version of Wicked Game. And
I think I saw
so
this. Yeah.
yeah, it's very short. It's like 2 minutes. They don't even sing the whole thing. It's just a part of it. But then I started, I just became obsessed with this song, and then I was searching for other versions from other artists, and then I
Hmm.
found a version by a band called Him. Apparently, it's a Nordic band. Now I don't remember if they are
Ah,
Finnish or Swedish, but then it's more like a heavy metal version of Wicked Game. It's pretty cool. I recommend.
definitely cool.
And then there's also a version by Celine Dion, which is Canadian and French Canadian. So
Oh, hell yeah.
you can also check out this version if you like the song.
For sure.
Yeah. So moving on, the name of the song is Buddah by Duck Ellington. And it's kind of an old
Ah,
jazz song, kind of 30s, 40s kind of
hmm.
vibe. And it's just like a brass band. There is no singing.
Yeah, that sounds about right for Duke Ellington. There is a song called Sir Duke that I think is performed by Stevie Wonder, and it's about Duke Ellington, I'm pretty sure. So I definitely know who you're talking about, and he's such a great musician too.
To be honest, this is like one more of those songs that I think I like them because they were in an album,
Uh,
and but I don't actually know much about Duke Ellington, and I don't listen that much jazz.
I definitely recommend Duke Ellington. He's one of the kind of like older individuals, but I you can really hear his influence in, I would say, like, I mean, Stevie Wonder, I guess would be one that I at least have heard some some influence. But I think like when I think of Duke Ellington, I just think of like American music. So I have a hard time even saying like, oh, this person definitely influenced this person, this person, and this person, because I think of Duke Ellington, I'm like, ah, yes, the guy who influenced everyone.
Yes, and I think many musicians back in this time because that was even before, rock and roll.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
these jazz composers and performers, they ended up influencing everyone that came after them.
Oh, absolutely.
And actually, on a related note, since we are speaking of jazz, this time of the year, so summer, Montreal, where I live, hosts a jazz festival that is quite popular.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
the city has been full of people who came for the festival, and they have actually some performances that are free. You can just go there and watch. And I've been watching to some of them, but most of them don't sound like the Ellington. There's some more modern jazz performers that mix also elements of rock and roll and electronic music in their songs.
There's a guy who is from Houston. His name is Dominique Hammons, and he was friends with my sister-in-law. They went to the same university, and he is a jazz violinist who like has traveled around. At this point, I think it's the world, and performs various songs. He has his own music on Spotify. I definitely recommend him. He has like a Christmas album that's fantastic if you like, chill background Christmas music.
Nice. What's his name again? Sorry.
Dominique Hammons. I'll write it down and send it.
Yeah, please. I'd like to listen to his songs.
He's great. He also has a couple of like covers and things like that. Like if you look on his social media, it's a lot of covers, and he'll do like classic things as well as like hip hop kind of covers. Like one of my favorite memories is listening to him play. What is that song called? Wobble. The song Wobble.
Nice. I'm gonna take a look later.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I definitely recommend Dominique. He's great, and he's such a nice person in real life.
Cool. It's not every day that you listen to someone on Spotify that you also know in real life.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Okay, so next song is one more by Creedence.
Nice.
So I have a lot of Creedence among my liked songs. So the name of the song is Molina.
Okay. I think I know this song, if I'm thinking of the right one.
Yeah, it's very catchy.
Yeah. I'm looking at the lyrics. And I'm pretty sure I know this song. She coming in the morning looking like a disaster, driving in the prowl car, spent the night in jail. Yep. I've heard this song before.
Yeah, and I think from what you just read in the lyrics, this is the general vibe that I get from Creedence.
Mm-hmm.
Usually talking about someone who's in a bad situation, but they're trying to like live life and enjoy things somehow. And they're usually like upbeat songs, happy songs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like them a lot because it feels less glitzy and more real. That's what I've always liked about them, personally.
But more real in what?
More
in what
honest
aspect?
for like a regular person's life, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, especially in contrast with other kinds of rock or other kinds of music in general, where I don't know, the artist tries to create an atmosphere or a narrative around a perfect life or ideal life of some kind. I know rap does that a lot.
Yeah, a lot of genres do that, but and I understand it's kind of cool to like imagine a fancy like rich life, but I think also for a lot of us it's so far out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah. Okay, so next one is finally a Brazilian artist.
Great.
I was thinking I really wanted for a Brazilian artist to come up so I could talk about one of them. So the name of this song is Sociedade Alternativa, which means alternative society in English. And it's by a musician called Raul Seixas. He's actually very famous in Brazil. He is a rock singer and composer. Okay. And actually, so his style of rock is more like a mix between rockabilly. So he's heavily influenced by those rockers from the 50s,
Oh,
but
cool.
also later on, he was influenced by psychedelic rock.
Oh, that's such a cool combination of influences.
So he has some songs that are like all crazy rockabilly, very danceable songs.
Hmm.
But this one, Sociedade Alternativa, is more on the psychedelic side of his work.
That sounds awesome.
But it also has a nice drum beat that repeats. So it's also that kind of song that you can go like head banging.
Ah, awesome.
And it has some parts of the lyrics are a bit like nonsense.
Hmm.
It's much like if you ever listen to I Am the Walrus by Beatles, you
Oh,
know,
yeah, yeah,
it's just a trip on acid by John Lennon in form of lyrics. And so it doesn't really, well, maybe for him when he wrote it made sense, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense for us.
yeah. I'll have to check that one out. That's not one that I'm familiar with. Somewhat unsurprisingly, I suppose. My knowledge of Brazilian music is primarily based in there was a movie that Disney released in the 1950s um,
Oh yeah, you told me
called
about that.
the Three Caballeros. And
Yes.
so like I as a child watched that over and over and over again, and I love like all of the music that's featured in it. So that's about the extent of my musical knowledge in Brazil.
Yes, I think Brazil is very well known for its like popular music
Hmm.
because, for example, rhythms like samba and bossa nova, who has also been heavily influenced by this popular music, they're the kind of music that people used to play, I don't know, in their backyard during a family party.
Hmm.
So it's really popular music in the really literal sense of the word. It was music that people were doing informally, and then little by little it became a musical genre.
Yeah, yeah, like the Carmen Miranda and that.
Yeah, and also heavily influenced by all the diversity of Brazil,
Oh yeah, for sure.
because Brazil has been colonized by mainly by Portuguese. So most
Hmm.
of Brazilian territory was officially owned by Portugal in the beginning, but then you also had South America was pretty much historically divided between Spain and Portugal.
Yeah, yeah.
So we had Spanish influences as well. Then, of course, African influence that came with the people who were enslaved,
Hmm.
and then influences from many European countries as well, because later in the 19th century and in the 20th century as well, we got immigration from pretty much everywhere in Europe. Um, I mean, most famously Germany and Italy, because they lost World War II, and then people had to
Yeah, yeah.
to fly. But even before World War II, there are lots of Germans and Italians in the south of Brazil, which is where the region where I originally come from, and also Polish. Also, well, I already mentioned Spain and Portugal. Also, many people came from the Middle East, like Lebanon, Syria.
Hmm.
We also have Japanese colonization in some parts of Brazil.
Oh, see, that one I did not know about.
Yes, the region where is São Paulo, which is the,
Oh
the biggest
yeah.
city in Brazil. It's the largest Japanese community in South America, is in São Paulo, Brazil. Yeah,
I didn't know that. That's fascinating. That's so
and then
cool.
and then I think there's also French and Dutch colonization. There's
That would
still
not shock me at all.
French Guiana is still a neighbor of Brazil. So
Hmm.
French Guiana is
Hmm.
pretty much a part of France that is in South America.
Yeah, I a few months ago I went to Lisbon to go to another conference. I presented some research there. And it was one of those things where I have been living in the Czech Republic for a while. And the Czech Republic is not the most diverse country in the world. So it was actually really nice to be in Lisbon for a while and be like, oh, diversity. There's people here who are different. It was amazing, especially coming from the US and like coming from like the Houston area, especially. It's quite diverse there. So it was actually, in a lot of ways, I find those environments to be a lot more comfortable just because I think that there's more interesting things going on. But I would assume like Montreal is kind of the same way. My understanding is that it's
Yes,
moderately diverse for Canada.
yes. Montreal, the thing is that Montreal is a huge city and it's
Hmm.
kind of a hub. We have many universities here. So you have international students coming from pretty much everywhere.
Hmm.
And so,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a very diverse city. I never been in the like smaller towns in Quebec in Canada, but from what I've heard, if you go to smaller towns, then yes, then diversity goes it's
It
much
decreases.
lower. Yeah, it decreases a lot.
Yeah, I have a friend who lives in Winnipeg, or I think she grew up in Winnipeg and I think she still lives there, but I'm not certain. I'm trying to get her on the podcast, so maybe in a couple of episodes she'll be on. And I know that from what she has told me, that seems to be something that she has had some frustration with. So I would
And this
think,
is
yeah.
interesting because Winnipeg is not such a small city. It's
No, I think she
smaller
lives
than
in like a small
Montreal.
town outside of.
Ah,
I
okay,
don't
okay.
think she's necessarily from Winnipeg. I think that she's in one of the smaller cities around it, but I'm not sure. And I don't want to like dox her. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
So you got one song left here, so we'll see what that one is.
Okay. So the song is called Would You Say with a question mark in the end. And it's by a band called Mechanical Light. And they're
Okay, I don't know
actually
this one.
a Brazilian indie band. I don't really know how to describe their sound. From actually, and this kind of connects to the questions that you made in the beginning of the podcast. You
Hmm.
asked me how I find music. And so one source of new songs for me now is Instagram, and it's Instagram ads because I see a lot of
Oh,
indie artists advertising on Instagram.
that's
And
interesting.
and I remember seeing these guys, and then I was like, at first I was more attracted by their visuals. I don't remember what they were showing. I think it was a part of a music video or a
Hmm.
cover of an album. And then I thought, this is interesting. And so I clicked and eventually I started listening to them. And they don't have a lot of stuff. They have only singles. They don't have a full album yet.
Yet being the key word.
I don't remember where I read that, but I think they self-describe as similar to Lana Del Rey.
Oh, that's interesting.
So they want to do like a Brazilian Lana Del Rey.
That's really interesting. I'm gonna have to listen to that because I enjoy me some Lana Del Rey sometimes. You know what's funny is I Googled the song and what came up is a bunch of I know I'm a nerd because a bunch of like scientific stuff came up where it's like mechanical waves and light from Khan Academy. So I tried, but it seems that Google does not want to be my friend right now. But that's awesome. I'll have to give them a listen.
Yeah, they currently have 168 monthly listeners according to Spotify. So it's
Ooh.
pretty hard to find. I tried to do that already. I tried to search them on Google. It's very hard to find any references to them outside of Spotify. So they don't
Okay.
even have like a web page and stuff like that. They seem to be very low key about their
Yeah.
work.
That's cool though, because whenever they make it big, presumably they will make it big. You can say, "Oh, I was in the first group of people who listened to them."
Yes, I would really love if they release more stuff, but
Hmm.
so far they only have a couple of songs.
Oh, wow. That's okay. We'll figure out. Hopefully we'll give them a bunch of listens and then they'll make more stuff. That's the ideal
Yes, yeah.
situation.
And now I'm spreading the word about them, so hopefully you will do the same.
Absolutely. So now that we've gone through all seven songs, I'll ask you a couple of kind of like wind down questions. And that includes the first, which is, does this playlist of seven songs accurately represent your music preferences?
I think yes, because it was a bit of everything that from the top of my mind I could say are my favorite things. So there was like classic rock, there was
Hmm.
electronic music, there
Hmm.
was some oldies like jazz and music from the 30s and 40s. And there were both Brazilian artists and international artists.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is that I just listened a bit of everything. I'm not the kind of person who says, oh, this kind of song I don't listen, this musical genre I don't listen. I feel that I could fit many more music genres on that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Considering that on this, how many songs? It were seven?
Seven. Yeah, it's not that many, to be honest.
Yes. Yeah, so I think considering that we only had 7 shots, they were very diverse.
Yeah, for sure. So, of the 7 songs, which one is your ultimate recommendation? Which song should everyone listen to?
Well, I think if someone haven't listened to Fortunate Son yet, they should. But I think it's almost impossible. People may not recognize by the name, but they certainly they've
definitely heard it, I feel like.
But then, I mean, excluding this one, which is a big hit, maybe I would say Mechanical Light. It's a nice recommendation.
Yeah, absolutely.
They are a new band that's trying to do new stuff, and they have some very chill songs. I like this kind of song for working, to be in the background.
Absolutely. That sounds like an awesome recommendation to put down. All right. So thank you for listening to the Shuffle Play On project. And thank you to Gabriel for agreeing to come on. Do you have anything you would like to add?
Well, actually, I think you have a very diverse base of listeners. But just in case anyone is a researcher and is a researcher in the area of software engineering, so might be interested in knowing more about software engineering projects, and especially I work with software engineering applied to game development and game engine development, and so I write articles about that. Currently, I'm writing mostly in Portuguese because I want to share my knowledge with friends in Brazil, and I see that on this specific topic that I work with, there's not a lot of stuff written in Portuguese, but I don't know, maybe you have Brazilian listeners.
Maybe, so who knows?
I'm just gonna recommend my website, which is hosted on GitHub. So the website is nkinesis.github.io. So nkinesis is wrote like Nkinesis.
Fantastic. I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, and so there is like it's my personal page, so I post there small texts about varied subjects. You can also find my publications there if you're interested on reading any of my academic publications.
Okay, sounds good.
And that's it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I was so excited when you emailed me. So I'm actually thrilled that we got to do this. So I will end this call or this podcast off by saying I started this project because I wanted music recommendations, of course, but also because I wanted to do something fun that helped me connect with people. My goal with this project is to create and post 12 or more episodes over the course of 1 year. If you have feedback or want to contact me for other reasons, please go to danielleklanglois.com. That is DanielleKlanglois.com for contact info and social media accounts. Or you could just leave a comment/review wherever you're listening to this. I hope you have a really great day. Thank you again to Gabriel. Have a good life. I don't know, man. It gets weird to be it gets weird to sign off on these things.